should fit into the hole. Warm, warm, warm. Ha! Now that this fits, let's head over to another workshop and weld the steel plate on top of it. So we made our way over to the school workshop where I've cut myself 2 nice big pieces of flat stock, and I also found this piece of square tubing that perfectly fits inside of the tube that we just turned down. So I'm gonna weld this piece of square tubing on the inside of this pipe to give it a little bit more rigidity, and making sure everything is nice and flat and clamped against the table. We're gonna weld this pipe to the center of this and then weld everything together. I'm back in the workshop and this thing is done. Now, let's see if it fits. I am very pleased with that. It actually fits. Now, unfortunately, it isn't quite as flat or straight as I would like it to be. I didn't clamp these 2 down firmly enough, so they twisted on me a little bit. Now, that's okay because as you've seen, I've cut out this piece of 30 mil thick MDF, and this is gonna serve as a nice big table for the drill press. So now we need a way of attaching this table to the metal one we built, and by doing that, we're also gonna build in an adjustability so that we can level the table and make sure that it's perfectly flat relative to the head right here. So we're gonna bolt these 2 together using a couple of 10mm bolts that will go through a hole that we're gonna drill into the steel plate, and they go into a couple of these threaded inserts that will go into the MDF. And that way we can use the threads on the bolts to adjust and level the bed. I'm sure that will make more sense in a second. Let's start assembling this and then we'll get it installed.
All right, baby girl, we are back at it.
Let's go.
This is gonna be like nothing we've ever seen before.
Are you ready to see your fixer-upper?
Fixer-upper, welcome home. Only on Discovery Plus.
I haven't adjusted it yet, we're gonna do that later, but basically the way that it is gonna work is that this bolt spins freely in the steel plate, and if we turn it, it screws more or less into the threaded insert into the MDF, and that way we can adjust all 4 corners to be completely level. But for now, it's just test assembled. We're gonna make this a little bit nicer. We're gonna take it apart again, put some oil on the top, round over the edges, and maybe paint the edges as well. The MDF table has a layer of oil on it and the base plate is painted. Now I also want to paint this middle piece right here, but I don't want to paint it in any random color. I would very much so like to paint it in a color that matches this one. Now I don't really know what color it actually is, but I have done some tests, and using 3 different types of hammer finish type paints, I was able to get something, after a few tests, I was able to get something that is very similar. And I've been smart enough to write the proportions down, so we're now going to go ahead and mix ourselves some paint in hopefully the right color. I'm going to use a syringe to suck up a little bit of the paint here. So I'm going to put in 65 grams of silver, 24 grams of green, and 11 grams of blue. And now we'll just mix all this together really well. So I'm actually really happy with the way the color turned out, and I'm gonna try and use a small brush and patch up all the small little blemishes that are in the paint right here. All right, so it's been about a day and a half since we painted the color that I mixed up. This stuff really takes quite a long time to dry. It's dry enough now. I've assembled the table, and I've also put the entire drill press on this rolling stand. So it's now time to mount the table for good. I'm just gonna tighten this down here so that everything is secured, and then we'll level it once everything else is done. So now that we have a nice, big and sturdy table, it's time to deal with this thing here that doesn't want to return up. And the reason why it doesn't want to do that is that there's a whole bunch of parts missing from in there. So I've got the cover that goes on here, like so, and somehow inside of there, there's supposed to be a spring that hooks onto a little nubbin on the inside here and a little nubbin on the inside there. And then this thing somehow is wound up in there and makes sure that it returns. So after quite a bit of wrestling with this thing, I finally got that spring in there, and I really hope that this is the right way of attaching it. And I'm also gone ahead and mounted this plate, and now I'm hoping that this little hook will catch as soon as I put this guy in here, and then I can use the Allen wrench and hopefully tighten. Ha! Ha! Look! And then there's a little set screw in there that I can lock it in place once the tension is good enough. So now that this thing actually returns properly, we need to deal with this handle. Well, not only is this handle pretty rusty, so it doesn't really slide back and forth that well, so we need to polish this thing up a bit, but also it has one missing knob. And I searched around on the internet for one that looks exactly like this, and I couldn't find one. So I thought, what do you have 3D printers for? So I printed one. So as you can see, they are very similar, but obviously the 3D printed one has some lines in it from the printing. But we can fairly easily take care of those slight imperfections from the 3D print by using the handle as a holder for holding this thing in the vise. And then we're just going to use some sandpaper, and as the lathe is spinning around, we can get a nice smooth and even finish on the plastic part. Oh, and we're also going to use the lathe to get a bit of a nicer finish on that handle. Alright, we've got a shiny new shaft that will now slide easily through here. And now we've also got two knobs. And my only problem right now is that the new one looks nicer than the old one. Okay, so these should all just screw together, no problem. And in no time, we should have this assembled. And just make sure that that doesn't knock your teeth out. So you can see that on the other side of the machine here, it has this really cool feature of being able to lock the head and swivel it around, and it also has a height adjustment. The first thing missing is one of these little nubbins. This one is not 3D printed. These are from eBay and they were super cheap. So that one goes on there. We still need to take care of the rusty handle though. But down here, we've got the same exact mechanism, allowing us to raise and lower the table and also swivel it around. But unfortunately here, the rod is missing with the threads on it. So we'll take the other one off and then copy that in the lathe. So this thing is actually super basic. It's just a 10mm rod with two standard M10 threads at the end. So we're just going to use this, turn it down, put some threads at the end. I'm just going to use one of these thread cutting tools to put the threads at the end. And then we should have ourselves one more of these out of this one in no time. And just like that, we have both of these handles nicely polished and functioning. So now we can lock and swivel this head here, and we can lock and swivel and height adjust here. Now this drill press is pretty cool because it not only has an adjustable table height-wise, but I also have some adjustment in the head right here. And that is done with this pretty cool ratchet mechanism. The only problem is that I don't have a handle for it. So I went ahead and ordered this thing. The only problem is that it doesn't fit. Luckily though, we have that guy right there. And it just so happens that probably one of 4 milling bits that I own is the exact right size for the hole that I need. So it should be a quite simple matter of just attaching this in here, lining up the cutter with the hole that we've got right here, and then cutting the hole. Ta-da! And just like that, we have a bigger hole. And with that, we can now lower the head and raise it. Oh, raising it takes more effort. And with that, we're onto one of the very last things I want to fix about this machine. And that is these old rusty oil ports. You see, these things are great. They make sure that you can easily oil and keep the moving surfaces lubricated. The only problem is that most of them are in a pretty rough condition. So to replace these old broken ones, I got a bunch of new ones. There we have it. This thing is finally done. I am super happy with the way this has turned out. I finally got the last little bits and pieces installed. These oilers were a little bit more tricky than I'd hoped. I had to get creative with some of the solutions here and there. I also put the depth stop back on so that I now can set a specific height and it will stop at that height. And also we've got this little lever here installed, which easily allows me to take out the chuck and put it back in. The table is also level, which was super easy to do. I just put a straight rod into the chuck right here and then used the 90-degree angle to make sure that that rod was square to the surface here, which it now is. That was super easy to do. The only last thing that I haven't had a chance to fix yet is this switch. I've ordered a new one, but it's gonna take a while to get in. But I managed to wire it up so that it works in one of the directions. If you're curious to which switch I was supposed to use for this machine, it will be that one right there. But for now, we'll have to deal with this one. One speed is still plenty since this drill has a gearbox. So this is now in the highest gear. And that's the equivalent of 3,480 revolutions per minute. And we can gear that down all the way down to, with this speed, it's 250. Isn't that cool? So overall, I'm super happy with the way this machine turned out. This project was really fun. We got to do some woodworking, we got to do some painting, we got to mess up some electronics, we got to use the lathe, we got to use the mill. This was just a good mix of a lot of different things. And on that note, I really hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you did like the video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. If you want to see more projects made by me in this workshop, now with a new drill press, please consider subscribing. We are really starting to get set up with a lot of cool machines that we can make tons of cool stuff in the future with. So I hope you want to join me in this journey of making new cool stuff. As for now, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye! Welcome to my workshop. It's great to have you back. But it is time to make some changes around here. You see, the layout of this place is far from optimal. Here, let me show you what I mean. Okay, so we'll start over here by the bandsaw. This bandsaw is literally just placed here because that's where I put it when I got it. And it's been here ever since. Which means that right now, the bandsaw is right next to where my computer is, where I sit and edit videos. And no, it's not a great idea to have the tool that generates the most amount of dust in the workshop next to my computer, which is probably the most sensitive to dust in the workshop. And also, right next to my computer, I've got my Bridgeport milling machine, which I guess also doesn't like a ton of dust. And then over in this corner, we have that situation. I don't know what to say, but this is where I store all my plywood and leftover wood from other projects. It's not pretty, it doesn't work very well, it takes up a ton of space, so we definitely need to do something about that. So the plan for today's video is going to be all about optimizing the workshop, moving the big machines around, and then building smart storage solutions for the things that now just are scattered around the workshop and take up a ton of space. Thank you so much for joining me in today's video. Let's get started. So before we start moving stuff around, let me just give you a quick update on what the plan is. So right now, the two big metalworking machines that I own, the mill and the lathe, are on opposite sides of the shop. And that doesn't really make any sense. So my plan is to get rid of that big mess in this corner here, stick the mill in the corner and the lathe right next to it. That in turn will free up all the space on that wall, so we can take the bandsaw and put it where the lathe is now, which is a good thing because then it will be far away from my computer and where I edit videos. And talk about where I edit my videos, I want to build a raised floor here with storage underneath, kind of similar to what we built in the kitchen in one of the earliest episodes. And then last but not least, we need somewhere to store this wood in a way more organized way. So we're going to build a storage solution behind the bandsaw. That way I have the most amount of distance between all the woodworking stuff, all the metalworking stuff, which will be in the corner here, and then my computer / office area over here. Okay, time to move some heavy stuff around. Okay, and now to the first challenge, somehow getting this thing, which literally weighs 1 ton, off the pallet. So here's the plan. I'm gonna stick 2 of these under here, and then we'll put some blocks under here. And now we should be able to lift this entire thing up and place these under here. These are glued together, by the way. And now hopefully we can drop it on the 2x6s. And now we should be able to take one of these out and drop it slowly back down. So far so good. Let's see if we can take another one. Oh, almost. We need something thin. Let's see if we can lift one side at a time. So I'm now hoping that I can wedge it up and then take out the 2 front. Pang! And now the last 2. And she's officially on the ground. Woo! Look at how massive my workshop looks now. Okay, I might be cheating a little bit. It's a very wide angle lens. And now to the big lathe. Okay, so just like they built the pyramids, huh? Okay, bandsaw. Pikachu will have to stay over here for a little while. Please don't fall on my computer. Please don't fall on my computer. That's all the machines moved. I'm going home. See you guys tomorrow. Okay, it's a new day. We just carried in a bunch of materials. Let's get rid of all of this stuff so we can start building a base for our new office area. Alrighty, so the basic frame for our platform is done. Everything is attached to the walls, everything is square and level. I first started with using a laser level to make sure that the outer pieces here were nice and level relative to each other. And then I made these small little support legs to fit with the crooked floor here. Next up is to screw in a bunch more of these 2F4s as a base for the fiber boards that are going to become the flooring. Alright, let's get some flooring on this thing. So the flooring is done and it's all screwed down. I'm also taped on this squishy sound absorbing layer. I probably don't need it, but it's on there anyways. I've already started laying the flooring with this first board here. It's the same clicky type stuff that we used in the kitchen, and it just clicks together one board after another. On the first one, I trimmed off the clicky bit so that it will fit snug up against the wall. And I've also trimmed it to length. And now it should just be a matter of clicking in one board after another, and I'll trim those off with a track saw. Okay, let's see how long this takes. Ready, set, go. Okay, I'll have to trim the last board, but that took 2 minutes, 40 seconds. So to finish up the edge of this floor here, I've cut a couple of strips of birch, which I've chamfered on 3 of the sides, and to make them more durable and resistant to stains, I've given them a couple of coats of varnish. And we're going to use this as the corner trim piece on the end of the floor here, not only to give it a nicer look, but also to give it a bit more of a durable edge, since I'm going to be walking up and down this thing a lot. So we're going to attach this with a bunch of glue and then some brad nails. I'm using this door as a temporary desk. It's super heavy. I have no idea why I'm using this. Now it's an office. Okay, I'll promise I'll make a new table in an upcoming video, but for now, let's make some boxes to use as storage solution underneath here. Okay. And we're of course gonna build those drawers out of my favorite material, MDF.